everyone, this is Gail, and welcome to another Tupelo Designs LLC Design Team Polymer Clay project. I touched on this briefly in my last video that I did on the fairy door, but I never did really show you. I just kind of did it in the background a little bit, but I'm going to show you how to do polymer clay applique. So what I'm going to do, I've still got this graphite pearl that I fell in love with when I did the fairy house, and you can see some marks on it because I did lay this on there to see if it fit. This is a jewelry finding that I had in my stash, and I've been wondering what I was going to do with it, and I got to thinking that this would work perfectly with the applique. So what I'm going to do is press this into my clay and make a good mark, then pick it up, and I'm going to use my knife to cut around it. And this left a really nice mark, but you can always, I'm going to trim again after I get this onto the heart, but this way it keeps me from having to use handle so much clay at one time. And I'll show you what I mean as soon as I get to that point. You see, that was a very rough cut, and that's no problem. I did leave the middle because that's going to be the base for our project. And I'm going to put this back, line it back up with those marks, and then I'm going to press on the bottom. And you can see the back part isn't as pretty. And we will fix that at the end. But I just want to press this good, and then you can take your blade and just go around your heart and trim it, and it will make it much cleaner. You might have to do this again after you've finished manipulating the flowers and the vines that we're going to be putting on this. But this will get us started. So I'm not too concerned about getting it exactly perfect because we will have to do this again at the end. So there we go. There is our heart. So this is our starting canvas, you might say. Now, the only problem with this technique is that I'm going to have to bring it up closer to you so you can see it, to see what I'm doing, and hopefully I will not go out of frame when I do that. I have a problem staying in frame, and I probably should put this on a piece of cardstock. I can use a small card for this one, just so I will be able to move it around easier. See, if it's on a card, I can move it. If it's stuck to my work surface, I can't do that. So let me see if I can, well, let me do this first. I'm going to start with some Primo Forest clay. And I can feel already that there's air in that end, and you want to know how I can tell? It just feels like it's flip-flopping. See, it's still got some air in it. That feels better. But we want to roll this very, very thin, because if you think about applique is usually done with thread. Let me just cut this off so that I don't have so much clay to mess with. It's done with a thread. I'm still feeling a little bit of air. You start on this end. But anyway, I'm going to make a vine, and then I'm going to put some leaves and flowers on it using the applique technique. Now, you need to make this as thin as you can, and you see I'm going pretty thin. but I probably ought to go even thinner than this. If you have an extruder, you could always extrude a very tiny stem. And let's see what we can do with this one. I'm going to cut the fat part off. And I'm just going to lay it on the clay. I'm going to find a place for the end to sit. And I really don't have any design in mind right now, except I do like curves. So if you can see that, the way that I've got that down, and now I'm going to need some more clay because I need something over here. This will probably not be a symmetrical design. I don't do symmetrical very well. Let me just roll this out. Actually, that whole piece of clay doesn't seem good. This one is probably better. If you want to do this a little bit easier, you can always take an acrylic block. And this is an acrylic stamping block, but it was very inexpensive, and I figured it was just a great thing to use for my polymer clay. But you can take that and roll across your clay. Actually, it does better if your clay is the same width. So let me start over on this. But you can take this and roll it, and it will make it symmetrical so that you don't have finger marks in it. If you need to go with a larger block and you happen to have one, then by all means use it. Otherwise, you can do this in sections until you get it down to the size you want it to be. And as I usually do, I don't do well with tools like this. I mean, I do in some cases, but when it comes to these skinny little snakes, I do better with my fingers, even if I have to cut part of it off. But that's probably about as thin as I'm going to be able to get this and still do anything with it. Let me get this end tapered a little bit. So this one, I might start here and do a little, well no, let's start up here a little bit closer. And do a swirl going in the opposite direction. You just have to kind of play with it and manipulate it until you get it just the way you want it. And see, this is trying to be symmetrical and I don't want it to be. So let me just turn this around and come back that way. So this is going to be the base for our design. Let me come in a little bit. See, that's going to be the base. Very unsymmetrical. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take a lighter green, and I'm using the bright green pearl, and we're going to roll again a tiny little snake, but this time we're not going to use it as a snake. We're going to cut it into little pieces, but the smaller you roll this, the easier it will be. So what we're going to do is just cut this into tiny little pieces. And when I say tiny, that's how tiny this is. Can you see? Because we're going to roll these into little balls, and then we're going to turn it into a leaf. Now you can do this, you can do a couple different things. This is going to be just your regular applique. I just flipped all these over here onto the side. But you can also do, what do they call it, a pointelle or something like that, where instead of making it into a leaf or anything, you can do it as little dots. But that gets very tedious. And I am not in the tedious mode today, so we're going to make leaves. Let me see how these do. Okay, so we're going to take these little bitty pieces and we're going to roll it into a little tiny ball. Matter of fact, I think I'll go ahead and do several. I'm going to roll these into little tiny balls so that they'll be all ready to do what I want to do, and I can see what size the balls are. Because sometimes you want to use the same size, sometimes you want to use a large and a small. But just roll a bunch of little tiny balls. And you'll do the same thing with your purple. This is Wisteria and Sunset Pearl. I didn't know what color I was going to use, so I thought I would just go with both. Maybe I can put 2 colors of flowers on here. And you don't have to use these colors. You can use any color you want. You can have your base be a white. You can have it be yellow. The base can be red, black, you know, whatever color you want. I just have fallen in love with this graphite pearl because it's not really silver, but it's not really gray. It's sort of in between. It's just gorgeous. So I've got a few of these rolled, so let me show you what we're going to do. I'm going to get a toothpick. And you know, if you've watched any of my videos, this is my favorite tool. But we're going to take a little ball of clay. I'll take that one. And I'm going to place it here. Let's see, I won't put it on the end because that's usually where a flower goes. I'll place it next to the end. And then I'm going to, let me bring you in so you can see exactly what I'm doing. I may not stay. So let me do another one so you can see what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm going to put a little ball of clay on there. I'm going to come over to the side where it attaches, and I'm just going to press. Here's another one. I'll put this leaf here. And I'm going to press. And you see, when you're doing this, they look like embroidery stitches, and that's what applique is. Well, actually, applique, I guess, is sewing one piece of fabric on top of another. This is more of an embroidery technique, I guess. But the tinier you can make these balls, the prettier your applique turns into. Press the part that, you know, away from the point. It gives it a little bit more of a point. Just depends on the look you want. So I need some more down here. There's not much frame here. Now, I've had people tell me I don't really need to come in this close. So maybe I won't. Maybe, you know, you can see well enough right there. Alright, so that's going to do it for the green, but I'm going to leave some of this green out here in case I decide to add more. Because sometimes you don't know until you're finished. But I'm going to do the same thing with the purple. I'm going to cut little pieces and roll little balls. And I won't make you watch this again. I'm going to go off camera and roll these, and then I'll be back. Okay, I finished with all my little purple and my sunset pearl balls. Let me move my green out of the way. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to make little flowers. I'm going to make 5. Let me do a small flower first. I will put a small one here. Let's see. Let's just put one there. Just press it down just like we did with the leaves. And just put them so that they're where you're pressing with the toothpick is up next to the other one. Hope my hand isn't in your way. See why it's important to have a surface you can turn. So there's 4. And then there's 5. 5 just makes a nice little flower. Now see that? You see the little flower? And you can adjust a little bit if you don't like the shape, but that's kind of going to work fine. You can also take a tiny little piece of yellow and put it in the middle. I don't happen to have any yellow that's out and conditioned. I don't think. I'm looking in my scrap to see if I have any in there, and I don't believe I do. So I apologize for that, but we'll work on that in a little bit. So you just keep making your little flowers. You can put them near your leaves if you want. But they're supposed to look like little embroidery stitches. And I like using an odd number rather than an even number. For some reason, they just look more natural that way. You can do buds, and I think I'll do a bud. And when I do a bud, I'm only going to use 1. That can be a bud. I'll put another bud maybe here on this end. And I've got one more tiny one here. Where can I put that? Maybe right here. Put that next to this leaf. So that, because you know, not all flowers are open all the time. You can take 2. That's kind of big. It's funny how you get to working with these and they get bigger as you work with them. I think right here I'm going to put 2 to make it a little bit larger flower, but still it's not a full flower. Can you see that? And let me put, let's see, 1, 2, 3. Let me put a full flower up here somewhere. And then I'll switch over to the purple. And we'll have different color flowers. Who said that all the flowers had to be the same color? Actually, I think I'm just going to put 3 on that one. So see, I've got 5 and 5, and then I have 2, I have 3, and then I have 1. So you can make different size flowers. So let's switch over to the purple, because most of these other oranges are a little bit big. So let me do a purple flower. And this isn't supposed to look realistic because there aren't that many purple flowers. There aren't that many orange flowers. But I think this is a place just for 3. What do you think? And I'll probably put a big flower, big purple one here, just because I don't have a full flower. Actually, there's not going to be room for a full one, so this might be a triple petal. I'll put a full flower here, even though it's next to a full flower. I think it will work well. Sometimes they don't want to roll where you want them to go. So you just have to finagle them with your toothpick. Your trusty old toothpick. And again, and I may have said this before, with the polymer clay, you can make it as complicated or as simple as you want it to be. I'm going to make this fairly simple, since this is like a first instructional video. And if I do another of this type again, I will probably do one that's a little more complicated. But just to show you what you can do, I think that's going to be a double. And now I need a couple of singles. So let me put a single up here next to this leaf. And actually I need a flower down here, but I've already got a purple down here, so let me try another one, see if I can't keep it away from the other purple one. You may want to find a design on the internet somewhere. There's plenty of places where you can look up embroidery designs and follow a design from from something like that, so that you have more of an idea. I'm just kind of free-handing it right now. But I do need a speck of yellow. And let me see what yellow I've got here. Actually, I've got some gold. I've got some 18 karat gold. Maybe that would work. I just need a couple little tiny little dots. And just put just a little bit of gold there in the middle. And stick it with your toothpick. Little piece of gold there. And stick it with your toothpick. You can make them little teeny tiny balls and then just stick it in the middle with your toothpick to make it look like the center of a flower. There's just all kinds of things you can do. I'm not going to put that there because that's not a whole flower. There's a little flower here. But there you go. Bake this in the oven. You can highlight these with pan pastels. You can actually, before you bake it, if you want to use some perfect pearls. Perfect pearls would look really nice on here right now. Let me see. I do have a purple. And I have a teeny tiny little brush. And I will take, let me move that so you can see what I'm doing. I will take some and put it on the top because you don't want a lot, and just brush over these little purple flowers. It'll give it a nice little shimmer. Just be careful that you don't get it on the background, because you don't want purple shimmer on your background. So that's why you need a tiny little brush. If there's any type of thing that you would like to see, you know, any designs or techniques that you would like me to show you on the Tupelo Designs LLC projects, please leave a comment below. And if I don't know how to do it, then I will learn. Because I've been doing polymer clay for quite a while, and there are some things that I have learned through the years that I just forget. Anyway, that's going to be our project. I'm going to bake this. Oh, I wanted to put a backing on it. What I was going to do for the backing, and let me put my perfect pearls away, was to roll out this graphite pearl again. Excuse the noise. I would have done this if I had thought ahead. Now that side looks good. So I'm going to put the shiny side down. And if you'll notice when you work with pearl clays, you might have a good side and a bad side. But the bad side can go down. Just press this in. And you can use your needle tool, you can use a blade, but just trim around this. Because I did say we would be trimming again, and I didn't do that, did I? But just trim around your finding here. You can use a blade. When this is rolled out on a number 3, no, it's rolled out on number 5. So when it's rolled out on a number 5, you can usually cut it with your needle tool. And then you just take your, I don't want to mash these little things, take your blade and even it up. Try not to hit any of your little appliques. You don't want to mess them up. And now we have a pretty smooth backing on our pendant. You can press it in if you want with your fingers just to kind of give it a little bit of a finished look. What I do is I have a stamp that I have my initials and the year. So I'm going to stamp this. Where is, it's this way. I'm going to stamp it with my initials and the year. See, it says GT16. I'm going to put this back on a card. I'll put it on a clean card. And I'm going to bake that. Put it on a chain. Oh, I meant to put something on that there. Why don't I put a purple flower on that little ring? I wanted to do something to cover that up. See, after I'm looking at it, I see all kinds of things I want to do. That's what usually happens with me. I'm going to cut this in half because it's too big. Just cut a little off of that one because it's too big. I think that's too little, but I'll roll these two together because I need 5. And what I'm going to do, I believe, is take a little tiny piece of that gold. Did I use it all? I guess I did. Take another little tiny piece of that gold and make a ball. And I'm going to center that little ball on that ring. See the ring that I'm talking about? It's this ring right here. It's a little metal ring that's on the end of that. It's meant to hang something in the center of the heart. But I don't want anything in the center of the heart except my work. So I'm just gonna, let's see which one of these ends up being the right size. I think it's going to be this one. I'll take this one and put it in the center of that little ring. And then I'm going to just surround it with the purple. They need to stick together. I've got a lot of metal right there, so they're not really, there we go. What you want, Pink? One of my dogs just came in. It must be time to go out. And put this, let me get these off of here so they don't end up going in the oven and baking by mistake. And put the 5th one there. Probably should have put the yellow one in last because I've kind of covered it up with the purple. But there we go. Now we've covered up that. It's going to go in the oven and hang it on a pretty silver chain, and we'll have a gorgeous spring necklace. So hope you enjoyed this. Come back again next Monday for another Tupelo Designs LLC polymer clay tutorial. This is Gail. I will see you then. Bye-bye.